The smoke that drifted above the red-scorched grasslands curled like morning veils across a sky already dimming toward dusk. Daenerys Targaryen stood alone before the blackened circle where the pyre had burned. All day a desert wind had moaned around her, gathering and scattering the last embers of Khal Drogo's funeral fire, carrying them westward with insistence, as though even the ashes yearned for some farther shore. Yet now, in the hush after heat, nothing stirred but the faint hiss of cooling coals and the restless chirr of newborn dragons on her shoulders. Drogon clung to the curve of her neck, teeth no larger than sewing needles but already sharp enough to pierce. Viserion and Regal nestled beneath the pale cascade of her braid, twisting their serpentine necks to peer at the lingering glow like children fearful of a dying hearth. They were tiny still, barely the length of her forearm, and their wings, still translucent, trembled whenever the night breathed across the plain. Daenerys exhaled, tasting soot and salt together. Every breath in the hours since her Khale's passing had felt strange to her, as though the air itself were borrowed, a debt that should have ended beside his. She remembered the weight of his hand upon her belly, of his voice rumbling promises in a tongue she had come to love. Now there were only promises she must make herself, spoken into the hush between ashes and stars. Footsteps approached, soft, unsure. Ser Jorah Mormont halted a respectful distance away, helm tucked beneath his arm. The last of the sun glare caught in the battered silver of his gorget, flaring then fading. He did not speak at once. He never did when the air still smelled of funeral smoke. At length she lifted her gaze. The Khalasar? Restless, Jorah admitted. They fear the grass ghosts gather at nightfall. They are not wrong, Daenerys said, but ghosts cannot harm what yet has purpose. She touched Drogon's narrow head. The hatchling hissed, then settled, soot-streaked wings folding like delicate fans. Tell them their Khaleesi will speak come dawn. Jorah hesitated. Many would ride east to the Bamboo Sea, perhaps. Others mutter of returning to the Dothraki Sea to seek new Khalasars. Few dream of water that cannot be drunk. Then it falls to me to teach them to dream. She took one step from the pyre, felt heat give way to night-cool ground beneath her bare soles. Come, sir. There is work enough before the moon returns. They walked through makeshift rows of hide tents and leaned to shelters that ringed the pyre's scar. The Khalasar, once vast beyond counting, had dwindled to scarcely 1,000 riders. Widows and orphans of men who had perished for a dream of iron thrones and far-off cities. Slaves turned freed whose chains still clung in memory, if not in metal, Carthian merchants who smelled profit even in despair. Their cook fires burned low tonight, flames muffled beneath pots of thin goat stew. Children watched her pass with wide eyes. Old warriors bowed their heads. Others stared, uncertain, weighing loyalty against hunger. She felt each glance as a weight upon her spine. At the tent that served as council pavilion, Daenerys pushed aside a flap of dyed horsehair. For faces awaited her inside. Rakaro, Aggo, Irri, and Jiki, all flea-bitten with exhaustion yet alert. A copper bowl of water steamed atop a brazier. By its thin light she could see the doubt etched in their features. "Blood of my blood," she began in halting Dothraki. "We have followed death's shadow long enough. Now we shall follow life." Rakaro, braided beard bound with bells that no longer rang for victory, frowned. "Khaleesi, where is life in the poisoned lands ahead? The red waste offers only thirst." "Not the waste," she said. "Beyond the waste lies the sea, and beyond that, poison water that no horse can drink," Aggo interrupted, though gently. Daenerys touched the hilt of the Iraq Drogo once gifted her, the curve of the blade warm beneath her fingers. "A horse cannot drink it, but ships may ride it. We will seek Pentos." Irri set her jaw. "Illyrio Mopatis?" "Yes." She thought of the fat magister's perfumed smile, of whispers traded in shadowed halls. He was eager to seat a dragon upon the Iron Throne when the dragons were only a girl's name and a promise. Let us see if he still courts dragons when they breathe. Silence settled, broken only by the distant crackle of torches. Jiki knelt, forehead pressed to the earth. "Blood of my blood, we will follow." One by one the others did the same. Daenerys felt the tremor of their faith run through the ground into her bones. It frightened her how easily their hope could break, and how fiercely she desired to keep it whole. That night she slept little. In the hour known to sailors as the first dog watch, she slipped from her tent, leaving Yora posted at the entrance. The dragons came willingly, as though sensing the journey within her heart. She walked until the fires dwindled behind her and only starlight patterned the plain. Kneeling, she traced the constellations above, the Spearwife, the Stallion, the Crown of Seven, and wondered which of those pale fires watched over the land that had birthed her ancestors. Westeros, a word at once strange and familiar, like a cradle glimpsed only in dreams. She pictured green hills rolling to a mist-shrouded horizon, stone keeps perched upon cliffs, rivers broad as hopes long forgotten. She saw herself upon a deck of creaking timber, wind in her hair, dragons wheeling overhead like living pennants. She saw black sails bearing the three-headed dragon of House Targaryen, and beyond them, a throne of swords gleaming savage beneath candle glare. But visions were like smoke, beautiful, fleeting, insubstantial. What she needed were planks, tar, rigging, seasoned crews, coin enough to make merchants forget their caution. Illyrio could provide those things, if she could reach him alive. The Red Waste still lay between here and Karth itself was a city of masks. She recalled stories of merchant princes whose daggers were keener than their wine, of warlocks whose blue lips whispered deceit. Yet she would go, for every road away from Drogo's ashes bent inevitably toward the narrow sea. Behind her, the dragons stirred as though sharing her thoughts. Drogon unfurled a wing, ragged edges catching starlight like shards of midnight glass. A puff of sulphurous smoke wafted from his nostrils. Daenerys felt him taste the air, testing its promise. "Yes," she murmured, voice rough with ash. "We will fly, but first we must learn to sail." She rose, smoothing dust from her linen shift, and turned back toward the faint glow of camp. Each step felt lighter than the last, as though purpose itself lent wings where grief had bound chains. Dawn bled slow across the horizon, a thin red line like a wound healing. At its first blush, she summoned the Khalasar. They gathered in a half-circle, women clutching infants, warriors leaning on spears, slaves hovering with cautious hope. Yora stood at her right, Rakaro at her left. Behind them, the three dragons perched upon a mound of sun-warmed rock, eyes glittering ember gold. "My people," Daenerys called, voice carrying across the hush. "You have lost a call. I have lost a sun and stars. Yet loss is not the end of the road, only one fork in its turning." Murmurs rippled, some curious, some wary. "In the east, we have wandered from city to desert, chased by thirst and scorn. In the east, they see only what we lack: armies, coin, great ships. But in the west lies what is ours by right." She lifted a hand, palm toward the setting moon. "A throne stolen, a realm that remembers the crack of dragon wings." A few Dothraki spat, fearful of salt demons that lived in water. Others listened, enthralled. "We will ride to the Jade Gates, cross the waste at dawn's edge, and barter with the Sea Lords of Karth for passage. From Karth we sail, first to Pentos, then to Dragonstone, then to the Seven Kingdoms whose lords have forgotten how to bend the knee. We carry no chains but the ones we break. We carry no flag but fire." She gestured to the dragons, who hissed and unfurled wings at her cue, a trick Ser Jorah had practiced with them by firelight. A hush, deeper than before, fell upon the ranks. Children stared, mouths agape. Old crones covered their hearts. Even the horses stamped, uneasy. "I will not force any man or woman to cross the poison water," Daenerys said. "Those who would ride east may do so with my blessing. Those who would remain here may keep what we share of meat and cloth. But those who ride with me will ride not as slaves nor as lost children but as blood of my blood." Rakaro raised his arak. Bells in his braid chimed once, soft, uncertain, yet brighter than they had in moons. "Khaleesi," he cried. "Blood of my blood," a dozen voices answered. A score, then a roar, Dothraki throats and freedwomen's cheers, mingling, rising. Yora exhaled beside her, relief etched across his rugged features. Still, Daenerys counted the silent faces. The old, the frightened, the bitter. She would not pretend all were swayed. Yet the tide had turned, and tides, unlike horses, carried entire worlds upon their backs. Preparations began as the sun climbed. Horses were bartered for cured meats and skins of water. Spears traded for silk sails yet to be sewn. Daenerys ordered crates built for the dragons, spacious enough that they could stretch but stout enough to keep them safe from sudden winds. Eerie and Jiki measured cloth, tongues clucking over needle sizes. Ricardo drilled young riders in the ways of shield and knot, foreign arts to Dothraki, yet wise when one must fight upon decks of rocking wood. Ser Jorah charted the path westward with strips of inked parchment scavenged from plundered caravans. He worried over distances 300 leagues to the coast, perhaps for if storms turned the skies. Each well they marked, each oasis rumored, each bandit tribe flagged in red. Slow marches save lives, he advised, tracing a route that zigzagged like a cautious snake. Haste kills in deserts. Haste also saves kingdoms, Daenerys countered, though softly. They compromised, 30 miles by dawn, 30 by dusk, rests at any pool broad enough to reflect a dragon's wings. Each evening Daenerys walked among the tents, asking names. She learned of a mother called Zoe who had lost 5 sons to the Bloodriders game of Arrak-Catch, of a smith from Norvos who had forged swords for men who used them against his kin, of a girl no older than 7 who carried her infant brother slung across her chest, his fingers tangled in her hair. For each she offered a promise fashioned not of grand prophecy but of small certainties. You will eat tomorrow. You will drink. Your child will taste a sea's breeze. They were modest pledges, easier to keep than kingdoms. Yet kingdoms, she knew, were built upon such stones. On the 12th day of March the horizon shimmered, and the air ahead acquired a green tinge. Palms, sparse at first, then clustering around a shallow basin of silver water. Refuge. As riders spurred forward, Daenerys felt a pang. Relief mingled with dread. At such oases raiders lurked, desperate men hunting weaker caravans. I will scout, Jorah offered, but Ricardo had already signaled 2 swift youths. They dashed ahead, dust plumes billowing. Daenerys waited, dragons restless. Long minutes passed before a horn sounded. The all clear. She closed her eyes, released a breath. They camped beneath the palms that night, water lapping at reed-ringed banks. Fires burned bright, goats sizzling, a luxury paid by slaughtering one of the remaining herds. Laughter rose, bells chimed. Somewhere a lute plucked a hesitant melody. Dothraki songs rarely dwelled long upon sorrow. Daenerys sat apart on a folded carpet, dragons curling at her feet. Jorah joined her, offering a copper goblet of watered wine. You did well today, Khaleesi. They did well, she corrected. Her gaze swept the camp. Children chasing one another through smoke, warriors dicing for dried figs, freed women braiding each other's hair. I fear what tomorrow's horizon may bring. Fear well placed keeps the careless alive. Jorah sipped, then added, but remember, they follow you because you do not break. She turned the goblet in her hands. I feel cracks within me, Ser. We all crack. He tapped his breastplate where rust spread like bruise. Steel is forged through fracture. You are stronger than you know. A hush fell between them. The lute's melody drifted, rising to meet distant stars. Daenerys thought of Westeros again, of a mother's homeland she did not remember. Did its rivers sing such gentle tunes? Did its people laugh as these people laughed, even under rule of usurpers? She wondered what songs they would sing when dragons re-entered their tales as living flame. Nearby, Drogon raised his head, black scales catching fireglow, and emitted a thin, rasping cry that sent ripples skimming across the pool. Rhaegal answered with a churr, wings flaring. Viserion merely watched, molten eyes reflecting torchlight. Soon, Daenerys whispered to them, though whether promise or warning she could not say. They reached the red waste's edge on the 17th dawn, an expanse of cracked clay and sand the color of scabbed blood, stretching to a horizon blurred by heat. Winds that sighed across it carried a taste of rusted iron. The Khalasar halted in uneasy silence. Daenerys rode forward atop her silver mare, cloak snapping. She surveyed the emptiness, felt the weight of every soul behind her. "The waste is heartless," Yora said quietly. "We must pace our water." She nodded. "We ride at night, rest by day." That night they moved beneath a moon thin as a whetted blade. Torches were forbidden. They guided horses by starlight, eyes peeled for the glint of scorpions. Water skins were rationed to half-drafts. The dragons, wings too fragile for sustained flight, rode in wicker baskets slung to poles borne by volunteers. Days stretched into a relentless rhythm: march, hide from sun, march again. Children cried for shade. Horses collapsed. Once a youth wandered from the line and was found at dusk, lips cracked, eyes blind with thirst. Daenerys knelt beside him as he died, holding his hand until the last breath escaped like wind through broken reeds. She wept after, alone, for she would not waste the tears of her people upon her own sorrow. On the 25th dawn, a storm rose from the east, flinging sand that stung like bees. Visibility shrank to paces. The Khalasar huddled, cloth wrapped around noses, while Daenerys stood tall, arms around the dragon's basket, murmuring calm though her own heart thundered. The storm raged 3 hours, then ceased as abruptly as it had come. In its wake, the horizon revealed jagged silhouettes, ruins half-buried, towers leaning like drunkards. "Vis Teloro," Yora identified, surprise threading his tone. "A ghost city, empty, long abandoned, but its wells may yet hold water." Hope flared. Daenerys led them onward, entering through a sun-baked gate whose arch bore faded glyphs. Streets paved with cracked marble opened to courts where fountains lay dry. Dust swirled above shattered mosaics. Yet within a palace courtyard, they found 3 cisterns, sealed by stone lids. Ricardo pried one open. Cool darkness yawned beneath, and the whisper of water echoed hopeful. Buckets were lowered. Laughter rang unrestricted for the first time in moons. They lingered 3 days in Vis Teloro, patching gear, salving sores, gathering strength. Daenerys walked the colonnades at dusk, dragons leaping from pillar to pillar, practicing awkward flights. In the empty throne room, a slab of alabaster carved into shapes of entwined serpents, she sat and imagined the Red Keep's hall. How did a real throne feel beneath one's shoulders? Heavy, she suspected, heavier than any crown. On the 3rd dawn, Ricardo brought news. A caravan's dust trail approached from the south, painted wagons bright as carnival masks. Carthene, Yora guessed. 13, perhaps. Or the Pureborn's traders. Daenerys clenched her fists. Opportunity and peril marched often beneath the same banners. See their colors, ready greetings and spears. They rode out at noon, meeting the caravan an arrow's flight from the city gate. Silk awnings fluttered above ornate carts drawn by oxen decked in turquoise beads. A palanquin of ebony rested atop 6 slaves' shoulders, curtains closed against the heat. From it emerged a man whose girth seemed crafted of butter and gems. His robe was brocade the hue of bruised plums, and his fingers glittered with rings. He bowed, jowls quivering. "Most resplendent Daenerys Stormborn," he intoned in high Valyrian, so accented it bent like reed in wind. "I am Xaro Zoan Daxos, a humble merchant prince of Karth and sworn friend of dragons." Daenerys noted the flicker of greed in his dark eyes when they alighted upon the basket where Drogon hissed. She inclined her head. "Friendship is proven in gift and deed, not in titles." Xaro laughed, spreading arms heavy with perfume. "Then allow me to prove abundantly. Karth beckons you like a lover, offering water, shade, and ships that kiss the breasts of twin seas." Yora shifted beside her, armored gaze wary. Daenerys weighed promise against peril, saw both measure equal. "Very well," she said, voice calm as stagnant pools. "Lead us to Karth. And there, merchant prince, We shall test friendship's gold. Xaro bowed again, smile wide enough to swallow fears. Yet Daenerys sensed the fractures behind it. The tremble of curtailed hunger, the shiver of a man who believed himself hunter even as he waded into a dragon's den. That night, beneath a canopy of shattered stars, Daenerys dreamed. She stood upon a ship of black wood, sails crimson, prow carved in the likeness of a dragon's head. The sea rolled beneath, dark as obsidian. Westeros loomed ahead, cliffs of pale stone, forests whispering old tongues. She felt salty wind whip through her braid, tasted destiny riding it like fire. Drogon soared above, wings spanning sunset. In the dream she heard distant bells. Bells of kings landing tolling doom, or perhaps bells braided in her own hair, heralding arrival. When she woke, dawn was a pale wound on the horizon, and the caravan wheels were already turning west. She rose, heart hammering to a rhythm older than fear, older than grief. The rhythm of wings beating against the prison of history. Dragons chirred. Horses stamped. Daenerys Targaryen, mother of dragons, widow of a Khal, last scion of a broken dynasty, walked forward to begin the crossing that would reshape 2 continents, and the story of 1,000 unborn songs. The days that followed blurred in heat haze and dust. Qartheen guards atop camel saddles guided the merged column, banners of indigo silk snapping. Traders whispered behind jeweled hands, casting sly glances at Daenerys dragons. She answered with silence and the occasional flare of Drogon's temper when a merchant's curiosity strayed too close. Xaro kept near her, spinning tales of Qarth's splendors. Towering gates carved of jade, bazaars perfumed with saffron and nutmeg, pleasure houses where water dancers performed upon mirrored pools. Daenerys listened, gleaned truths from exaggerations, and offered sparse words in return. She trusted him as one trusts a knife. Useful, dangerous, never to be left unattended. On the 5th evening, storm clouds gathered rare in the waste. Thunder rolled like distant drums, and lightning scarred the horizon. Camps were pitched in frantic haste. In came a sudden deluge that turned dust to mud and filled every cracked footprint with silver. The Dothraki danced beneath it, laughing, tongues outstretched. Daenerys let the drops streak her cheeks, tasting iron and sky. The dragons shrieked delight, wings beating against falling water. After, when fires sputtered in damp pits, Yora approached with a parchment scroll sealed in wax. "A raven from Illyrio," he explained. "I sent word by courier weeks past." Daenerys slit the seal. Fat Magister's script unfurled. "My dearest Daenerys, jewel of the Undulls, mother of dragons, rightful queen of the 7 kingdoms," she skimmed until the lines that mattered. "Pentos awaits you, harbor cleared, 3 ships provisioned. Come swift, come secret. The usurper's spies grow bold." She folded the letter, heart pounding. 3 ships, enough for her Khalasar's reduced numbers, barely. Yet secret arrival meant slipping past prying eyes, avoiding slavers out of Astapor, pirates from stepstones. "We must leave Qarth quickly," she told Yora. He nodded, brow furrowed. "Xaro will not part with you easily. Then we will not ask permission." Yora studied her a long moment. "Illyrio plays his own game, Khaleesi. Do not mistake allies for friends." "I mistake nothing," she said. But when she lay that night, wrapped in damp furs, the dragons curled against her ribs, she wondered whom she could mistake for friend, when every path forward was paved in bargains. The city of Qarth appeared on the 29th dawn, its gates of the moon rising like carved mountains. Walls of pearl and tourmaline shimmered in sunlight, and banners of embroidered peacocks draped from minarets. The sight stole the breath even from jaded Dothraki. Yet Daenerys saw more than splendor. She saw cages disguised as palaces, leashes woven of silk. She remembered Viserys' boasts of Magisters fat with coin who would buy a crown for every lie he whispered, and how cheaply those lies had bought his death. Xaro conducted them through the city's outer courts beneath the gaze of masked guards whose spears bore rubies. Crowds parted, murmuring at the sight of scaled hatchlings. Children cried out in awe. Nobles tittered behind perfumed fans. They lodged in Xaro's mansion, an opulent labyrinth of mosaic floors and marble baths. Daenerys accepted his hospitality, knowing each cup of sweet wine tallied another debt he would one day claim. That night he hosted a feast. Courtesans clad in translucent silks danced atop mirrored stages. Opal-studded plates bore roast swans stuffed with apricots. Musicians plucked zither strung with gold wire. Daenerys tasted each dish lightly, sipped water rather than wine. She watched Xaro flatter her bloodriders, watched Piet Pri, gaunt warlock with lips the color of bruises, float near, eyes like polished ice. He bent low, whispering of wonders in the house of the undying. She smiled with all the warmth of winter and turned away. Let him ponder that chill. But beneath the feasting hall's chandeliers, she gleaned rumors of war brewing in the free cities, of gray plague in Lys, of a wine-dark fleet sailing under the Kraken banner, the Ironborn raiding farther east than ever before, and most precious, whispers of the Seven Kingdoms. King Robert dead of a boar's tusk, a boy king crowned, the realm fracturing along old scars. Opportunity's door cracked open at that news, and Daenerys felt wind rush through. After 3 days, she announced her intention to depart. Xaro pleaded, "Stay longer, partake of Carthage's delights, let its merchants gift you pearls." She thanked him with smiles forged of ice. She traded spices plundered from Vis Teloro for maps of the Jade Gates and the Basilisk Isles. She bartered amber and lapis seized from caravan guards for a black galley anchored in Carthage's eastern harbor, captained by a lean Myrish woman whose price was 1 dragon's scale. Daenerys gave her instead a promise of 3 scales when they reached Pentos alive. On the eve of departure, assassins came. A gift box bearing scarlet bows appeared before her chamber. Within, a manticore coiled, barbed tail twitching. Yora's quick sword severed its spine before it struck. Daenerys felt neither shock nor outrage, only cold affirmation. Qarth would not see her sail away unmolested. At midnight, they slipped from the mansion. Dothraki hoofs clattered through silent streets. Drogon took flight, skimming rooftops, his hissing glow enough to make watchtowers lower their spears. By dawn's light, the black galley unfurled sails dyed midnight, and Daenerys stepped upon its deck, the teak warm beneath her sawls. Xaro's harbor guard shouted pursuit, but the Myrish captain, Salara Sand, she named herself, laughed and loosed rigging. Oars dipped, catching tide. Wind snapped sails taut. Carthage's jewel-bright walls receded, shrinking to a smear of color upon the rim of the world. Daenerys stood at the prow, cloak whipping, dragons clinging to rigging, and felt the ship's pulse beneath her heels. She closed her eyes and tasted salt air, briny, cold, laced with possibilities. Behind her lay deserts and ruins. Ahead, storms and kingdoms. The narrow sea awaited somewhere beyond this endless swell, beyond pirates and storms and Illyrio Mopetus promised ships. Westeros waited beyond that, a realm unready, perhaps, for dragons reborn. Daenerys opened her eyes. The horizon glimmered steel blue, stretching forever. She raised one hand, as if to draw it nearer, and whispered, "To home!" Dragons shrieked, wings beating, and the black galley carried them westward, carving a path through waves the color of forgotten tears, toward a destiny still half-shrouded in mist, but burning brighter with every mile of open water. The morning after Carthage's painted walls sank beneath the curve of the world, low clouds rolled across the Jade Sea like tattered sails torn from some forgotten armada. Dawn filtered through them in bruised streaks, lending the waves a sullen purple cast. Daenerys watched from the forecastle of the black galley, feet braced against the rise and dip of timber, wind tugging at her braid until silver blonde strands whipped loose across her face. Drogon balanced upon the rail beside her, already twice the length of her forearm. Claws sunk deep into salt-slick wood, wings half unfurled to taste every change in current. His siblings perched farther aft, roosting among coils of tar-smelling rope, their higher cries faint beneath the thrum of canvas overhead. Crewmen stole furtive looks at the hatchlings whenever they thought her distracted. One sailor, a boy from Myr no older than 12, pressed an amulet carved in the shape of a seven-pointed star to his lips each time Drogon hissed, as though the sign of the faith might shield him from dragonfire. Others whispered superstitious prayers to the many-faced god or the Rhoyner's mother river. Salara Sand, the ship's captain, scolded them with laughter sharp as gulls. Yet even she kept a waterskin of spiced rum within reach of the helm, sipping whenever smoke curled thicker than usual from a dragon's throat. "Seas changeable as politics," Salara remarked late that afternoon, knuckles white upon the tiller as crosscurrents jostled the galley like a toy. But a clever sailor threads her path by reading both. Daenerys, cloaked in wool against spray, considered the horizon. "And what do your politics tell you today?" "That we skirt the Basilisk Isles too close for comfort. Pirates nest there, and they'll smell coin on these decks like sharks scent blood." "We carry little coin," Daenerys said. "Only hope. Hope buys ransoms poorly, your grace." Salara's dark eyes glinted beneath the shadow of a salt-stained scarf. "Still, we'll keep west of the poison passages. Safer waters, though slower." Daenerys nodded. Slow was a bitter draught when Westeros waded beyond unmapped miles, but corpses sailed nowhere. She left the captain to her charts and returned below, where Yora drilled a knot of former slaves in spearwork beside stacked casks of olive oil. Sweat and fear mingled in the hold's rank gloom. Yet each jab grew truer than the last, and the Bear Knight's booming praise echoed like drums. "You must cut wider," he coached a wiry Giscari youth, repositioning the boy's grip. "The deck will pitch beneath you. Follow its rhythm, don't fight it." Daenerys watched unseen a while, heart tight with gratitude. Yora had served 3 masters in his life. First the cause that exiled him, then the usurper he spied for, and now her. Of those loyalties, only the last gave his voice the note of belonging she heard now. She hoped never to betray it. That evening, while the galley's cook ladled bean stew spiced with saffron traded in Karth, a stiff wind shifted eastward. Sails cracked, waves built from polite swells to sullen fists of iron, slamming the hull. Salara shouted orders. Sailors scrambled up ratlins slick with spray. Daenerys helped lash loose barrels, Jiki steady at her side, both women barefoot for better purchase on the slippery planks. Overhead, thunder rumbled like distant cannon. Lightning bared the deck in staccato flashes. In one, Drogon launched skyward, wings thrumming, his shriek swallowed by the gale. Viserion followed, pale form vanishing into cloud tatters. Rhaegal clung stubbornly to a yardarm, talons scraping. "Get them down!" a sailor cried, voice high with panic. "Storm'll tear them apart." Daenerys cupped her hands around her mouth, roaring Valyrian commands that whipped away on the wind. Drogon answered first. He stooped, banking between masts, and seized a rigging line in his teeth, sliding down until Yora caught him by the torso and cradled him like a writhing torch. Viserion returned soon after, scales gleaming wet silver. But Rhaegal, startled by a sudden bolt that forked too near, slipped, wings striking rope, then plummeted. Time slowed. Daenerys glimpsed green wings flailing, the void of churning sea yawning beneath. Without thought she sprinted, legs slamming wood. At the rail she leapt, fingers catching a hanging ratlin. Momentum swung her outward as the ship lurched. For a breath she dangled above black water flecked with foam, hair plastered across her face. Rhaegal tumbled below. She loosened one hand, reached, caught scaly tail just above the fins. Weight wrenched her shoulder hot with pain. Muscles screamed. Behind her somebody shouted, "Khaleesi!" Another lurch as the galley climbed a crest. Rope burned her palms. Rhaegal's claws raked air. Then Yora's gauntlet grip seized her wrist. Together, with 2 sailors hauling, they hauled Dragon and Khaleesi alike back to deck. Daenerys collapsed to knees slick with brine, clutching Rhaegal against her chest. The hatchling shivered, emitting crackling coughs of smoke and seawater. She stroked his neck until tremors eased. All around, sailors stared, not with fear now but wonder. Some knelt. One pressed his forehead to planks, muttering prayers. Lightning flared again, outlining Daenerys in fire-white silhouette, damp gown plastered to limbs, dragon cradled like a newborn. In that instant, rumor emerged that neither storm nor sea dared claim the mother of dragons. By morning, the squall had blown itself ragged. The sun rose sullen but bright, revealing a deck littered with torn sailcloth, snapped spars, and one broken finger among the crew. Yet the hull held firm, and no life had been lost. Salara congratulated her hands, though her gaze lingered longest upon Daenerys, eyes darker than usual beneath fatigue. "You court Balerian's shadow," she said quietly while overseeing repairs. "The Conqueror's blood rode dragons across seas, but even his beasts feared storms." "I fear them too," Daenerys admitted, flexing a bruise blooming along her forearm. "Fear teaches caution. And yet you leapt. My child was falling." She stroked Regal's snout. The green hatchling churred, recovered enough to nip affectionately at her thumb. Salara studied her as though weighing fable against fact, then nodded once and resumed ordering her men. By sundown, spare canvas replaced the worst tiers. Oarsmen spelled each other at the benches to compensate for diminished sail. Progress slowed, but spirits soared. Every retelling of the night's near disaster added grandeur. Some swore Regal had spread wings wide and caught a gust to glide safely into her arms. Others that lightning had bent aside to spare them. Daenerys let the tales grow. They were mortar-binding loyalty. 2 nights later, a lookout spotted lanterns bobbing on the western horizon. Far too many and too steady for fishermen. Salara's spyglass confirmed lean hulls riding low, sails patched and mismatched. Pirates. Daenerys gathered her commanders in the cramped chart room. Yora, Salara, Recaro, and Ago, whose spear arm had proven stalwart in sparring. "They outnumber us 4-1, Salara said, pointing to crude depictions on the parchment map. "Longships built for speed. We could run south," Yora offered, "but they'll close by dawn." "Fight," Recaro argued, braids chiming. "Sea raiders fear fire." Daenerys looked to her dragons, now restless in their crates, sensing tension. Drogon's breaths came in hissing gusts, red-orange embers veining his throat. Her mind flashed to stories of Valyrians who unleashed hatchlings in battle only to have them flit astray, torching friend and foe alike. Yet hesitation courted death no less than recklessness. "We make our stand at sunrise," she decided. Archers ready oil-soaked arrows. Recaro's riders guard the waist. "Ser Yora, you and I shall hold the forecastle with the dragons." "Khaleesi hatchlings cannot. They can frighten," she interrupted. "And fear is half victory." At first light, the pirate flotilla swept close. Hulls painted a lurid red that bled into wave reflections. Drums beat time for oars. Battle cries in basilisk tongues shredded the quiet. Salara's archers loosed, fire tips streaking like comets across narrow water. Some fell short, sizzled out. Others clattered against shields. Pirates jeered, until Drogon leapt from Daenerys' arm, hovering above the prow. He inhaled. Throat glowed. A jet of fire lanced outward, brief but bright as a forge flare. It fell upon the nearest longship's sail, and canvas blossomed into living flame. Jeers turned to shrieks. Oars tangled, hulls collided. Daenerys felt heat wash across her face, tasted its copper tang. Viserion joined the dance, spitting pale gold flame that set ropes alight. Regal circled awkwardly but found his mark upon a helm, melting iron to the man's skull. Yet not all raiders quailed. Grappling hooks hurtled. 3 clanged upon the galley's rail. Pirates swarmed up lines. Lean men with curved daggers and armor stitched from boiled crocodile hide. Yora met the first with a downward stroke that split skull to teeth. Recaro thrust upward, severing hands at wrist, sending the attackers back screeching. A second hook bit wood. Daenerys stepped forward, heart hammering. One pirate gained the deck, eyes black with coal, grin gap-toothed. He lunged for her, blade arcing. She ducked beneath the swing, drew Drogo's arak from her belt, and slashed across his thigh. Blood sprayed. She pivoted, momentum aided by the ship's roll, and cut again. He toppled. Another attacker seized her braid, yanking. Pain sparked white. She drove her elbow backward into his ribs, felt bone yield. Drogon shrieked and dove, claws raking the man's scalp. Flame gusted, flesh sizzled. Within minutes, the assault faltered. 3 pirate ships drifted ablaze, their crews leaping to waves that hissed around them. The remaining longships veered off, drums silenced beneath screams. When the last grapnel sank and water swallowed final embers, the sea stank of tar and charred meat. The black galley listed but held. A single mast now bore scorched scars. 1 sailor nursed a spear wound. 2 more bled from arrow slashes, but their spirits raced wild with triumph. They cast nets to haul survivors for ransom. Daenerys spared those who surrendered, but 4 who tried again for her life were bound and thrown back to the wave. Mercy had limits when destiny sailed on. That night she tended wounds with boiled wine, binding cloth round a gash beneath Yora's shoulder. He endured her care in stoic silence until she tied the last knot, then said, "You fought well, brave, but reckless." "I have been many things," she replied, rinsing hands crimson in a bucket. "Reckless among them, yes, but coward never." Yora's lips twitched toward a smile that became a wince as the bandage bit. "Your father was brave, too. My father burned." She rose, tipped bloody water into the scuppers where waves washed it clean. "I shall be wiser." Days of calm followed, clouds thin and high, winds easy. Repairs progressed. Splintered yardarms replaced with spares, sails reseamed. During quiet watches, Daenerys walked the upper deck, practicing High Valyrian commands for her dragons. Dracarys for fire, Sovs for fly, Epigon for perch. She rewarded success with scraps of charred goat. Progress was uneven. Drogon learned fastest, Regal next, Viserion slowest but graceful in the air. Every successful flame warmed her more than any cloak. Salara often joined these sessions, offering salted almonds from a pouch. She told tales of the summer isles, of spice kings whose fortunes rose and fell with monsoons, of storms that birthed new islands overnight. In return, Daenerys shared memories of the Red Waste March, of the miracles and miseries that birthed her reborn children. Amid shared salt and stories, respect forged between queen and captain, though neither mistook it for equality. One starless night, when even the moon hid, Salara steered by instinct and distant breakers' song. Daenerys stood beside her, cloak billowing, dragons nested on the roof of the stern cabin. Below, lanterns glowed dim, 1 per hatch, to keep pirates guessing at numbers. "Illyrio's letters speak of Westeros in chaos," Daenerys said. "A boy sits the Iron Throne, but half the realm calls him usurper." "War makes good markets," Salara observed dryly. "Ships laden with saffron one way, refugees the other." "I will end their wars," Daenerys murmured. "But first I must win mine." "Wars aren't won," Salara answered. "Gaze on the dark line of horizon. They're paid for in blood, coin, or promise. Decide what you'll spend before merchants set your price." Dawn found them sighting the northernmost reaches of the summer sea, turquoise fading to the steely blue of Stepstone's currents. A barren isle loomed to starboard, carcass-white rocks scattered upon its shore like dragon teeth. They anchored in a sheltered cove to take fresh water from a trickling spring. The cove hosted ruins, broken walls of pale stone, half buried by shifting sand. Yora led a small party ashore. Daenerys followed, dragons perched upon shoulders, curious. Waves hissed over shards of marble columns etched with glyphs from a tongue older than old Valyria. Within the ruin's heart, they found a cistern, water sweet enough after filtering through charcoal. Yet unease prickled Daenerys' skin, like eyes at her back though gulls alone watched. By sundown supplies were replenished. As crew rowed final barrels to ship, twilight thickened, casting long shadows across the broken courtyard. Daenerys lingered, tracing glyphs with her fingertips. The patterns twisted, serpentine, reminiscent of draconic wings. A sudden rasp behind. She spun. Piet Pri emerged from thin air, gaunt as famine, blue lips stretched in uncanny smile. "Mother of dragons," he breathed, voice like cracked glass. The undying grew hungry in your absence. Before she could call out, 3 more forms stepped from gloom. Identical Piets, each clasping hands writhed with sigils of smoke. Drogon hissed, baring needle teeth. "Come," the first warlock whispered. "Sip the shade of the evening. See futures yet unspooled." Daenerys backed to sun-warmed stone. "I have seen enough futures. They burn." The warlocks advanced. Then torches flared at ruin's edge, Yora, Rakaro, and Salara charging. Arrows hissed. One warlock skewered through the chest faded like mist. The arrow thunked useless into rubble. Another raised a hand. Purple sparks crackled, searing air. Yora's shield took the blast, wood charring black. Drogon spat fire. Flame engulfed a warlock. He shrieked, form shuddering, then split into cinders that blew apart on sudden wind. The remaining 2 vanished, leaving behind only an acrid scent of burnt violets. Silence rushed in. Daenerys caught her breath, palms stinging where nails dug. Yora's eyes scanned the shadows. Salara cursed in Rhoynar. No sign remained. "Pack what's left," Daenerys commanded, voice steady by will alone. "We sail now." They departed the isle at moonrise, oars beating swift rhythm. Piet Pre's scent lingered, riding waves long after land slipped away. Daenerys slept little that night, dreams plagued by doors opening onto halls of endless doorways, each revealing Westeros in flame or frost. Yet in every dream she walked forward, never turning back. 2 weeks' passage carried them to the straits south of Pentos, where merchant cogs dotted the horizon like crumbs trailing a rich man's feast. The wind shifted cooler, bearing scents of pine and distant snow from the Dragonstone current. Daenerys felt her pulse quicken at the tang, home's first whisper. But the black galley must first dock in Illyrio's harbor. On a mist-shrouded morning, domes and spires of Pentos rose ahead, half hidden by sea haze, banners limp in still air. Beyond breakwaters, white gulls wheeled above tiled roofs. A harbor tower tolled a bronze bell announcing arrival. Salara guided her ship past fishing dhows and merchant cogs, giving the fat orange sails of Volantines a wide berth. Daenerys stood at the bow flanked by Yora and Rakaro, dragons restless beneath travel-stained cloaks. Harbor guards peered over railings, eyes widening as they spotted scaled tails flicking. At the quay, Illyrio Mopatis himself awaited, furs straining across his vast belly though the air bore late summer warmth. Beside him hovered a retinue of Pentoshi guards in bronze caps, and 3 narrow-jawed men in striped silk who reeked of Sellsword. Illyrio's painted chariot gleamed under chartered sunlight. Its wheels alone could buy a small village. He bowed extravagantly as Daenerys disembarked, rings flashing. "My silver queen," he boomed in liquid Valyrian. "How Pentos pales beside you." She descended the gangplank, Drogon tucked beneath her arm, his head poking from folds of cloak. Illyrio's eyes narrowed with delight, covetous as a banker counting dragons' worth in coin. "Magister," she greeted coolly, "your letters spoke of ships. 3 swift cogs, as promised." He gestured toward distant masts where black sails hung furled, each stitched with the 3-headed dragon in red. Provisioned with dry stores, good wine, and a Lutian captain who sailed for Prince Rhaegar's fleet in his youth. "Generous," she said, though generosity rarely lacked price. She glanced at the Sellswords. "And the escorts? Chevaliers of the Golden Company." Illyrio's smile deepened. "Or rather envoys. Their captain general has heard rumors of dragons returned. He is intrigued. The Golden Company, exiled heirs and hardened veterans sworn to Bittersteel's dream of returning a Blackfire to the throne. Their loyalty rode coin and grievances both." Daenerys weighed possibilities, felt Yora's unease beside her. "We shall dine tonight," Illyrio declared. "Speak of alliances, of sails, of swords." He extended a velvet-lined arm. "Pentos opens its coffers to House Targaryen." Daenerys inclined her head, accepting his escort yet keeping half a pace distant. The harbor smelled of brine, tar, and opportunity polished bright as new-minted silver. Above, gulls cried, echoing across tiled alleys like restless spirits of things to come. As the procession wound toward Illyrio's manse, past marble fountains spouting perfumed water, past beggars who knelt with bowls outstretched, Daenerys lifted her gaze northward. Beyond the hills lay the narrow sea, and beyond that snow-capped mountains of home unseen since before breath. She imagined Dragonstone's basalt towers rising like fangs above storm-ridden cliffs, imagined black sands where dragons once hatched, imagined great houses squabbling over a realm split by wars, and she imagined wings, larger now, beating strong, carving sky over red keep spires. Inside her cloak, Drogon flexed, scales rasping silk. His heat seeped through cotton to her ribs, steady as a drumbeat. With each thrum, Daenerys felt resolve temper. Ships waited, swords would follow, fire and blood would come, but not yet, not before bargains forged, loyalties weighed, dragons grown. Victory brewed slow, like rich broth thickened over coals. Patience now would flavor power later. So she walked, smile serene, toward a feast fat with hidden costs, toward plots deeper than Illyrio's wine cellars, toward Westeros still distant but no longer unimaginable. 5 hours of tale yet stretched before her, 500 choices, 5,000 heartbeats. Each would bring her closer, to throne, to legend, to doom perhaps. But Daenerys Stormborn had stared down deserts, storms, pirates, warlocks, and the void yawning beneath a plummeting dragon. What, then, was a little more distance? In the chill corridor of the future, she heard bells again. Soft now, far off, yet certain. They tolled not for death but for arrival. And she intended they should ring loud enough that every lord in Westeros would tremble at their peal. For a moment, as Pentos Gate swallowed her entourage in shadow, she imagined those bells chiming atop every city of 7 kingdoms, heralding a dawn paved in dragonfire and justice. Then the image faded, leaving only the taste of honeyed dates Illyrio proffered and the weight of Drogon's claws pricking gently through her sleeve. A reminder that dreams, like dragons, were made real by the sharpness beneath their beauty. Illyrio's manse sprawled like a leviathan of marble and rose-colored granite, its colonnades draped in flowering vines that perfumed the late summer air. From balconies carved with frolicking cherubs, silk banners of Pentoshi orange and azure hung limp, for the evening carried only a faint breath of sea breeze. Daenerys crossed mosaic floors depicting Valyrian dragons entwined with mermaids, an artful reminder that even beasts of fire might wed the deeps, should artists command it. Torchlight shimmered across polished tiles, and the hush of distant fountains followed her steps like a musician too shy to offer song. Servants in dove-gray livery guided her entourage through an antechamber of marble pillars twisted in the shapes of pomegranates and figs. There, Rockies bound to bronze spears waited, eyes alert beneath crested helms bearing Illyrio's sigil, a fat candle aflame. The cell's words of the Golden Company lingered behind them. 3 lean men in black brigandines chased with the golden skull, their close-cropped hair betraying old war habits. They stood as still as statues, but Daenerys sensed their gaze flickering beneath half-lowered lashes, measuring the dragons that clung beneath her cloak. Illyrio's voice boomed from the feasting hall beyond. "This way, my son of summer. Your table steams, your goblet brims, and Pentos bends a grateful knee." Yora flanked her left, hand at sword belt. Recaro strode at her right, bells chiming softly from a braid newly polished. Ago, Iri, and Jiki followed with a dozen of the strongest Dothraki warriors. Each permitted a short arak that would not scrape archways yet could cut a guard in twain if need pressed. Salara Sand came last, cloak still smelling of tar and brine, eyes wary as a harbor hawk despite Illyrio's invitation. She had insisted on bearing at least a belt knife. A captain never dines where she could not carve a path back to the tide. They entered the dining chamber beneath an archway inlaid with mother of pearl. 2 long tables gleamed with silver dishes. Candles burned within glass lamps tinted rose. Besides Illyrio, a single guest of honor stood. A grizzled man whose thick beard had gone iron gray, rough scars crisscrossing his weather-tanned cheeks. He wore no cloak, only a padded gambeson under a black surcoat sewn with the Golden Company's heraldry. A crowned skull above crossed swords. Illyrio waddled forward to greet her, rings clacking. Daenerys Stormborn, may I present Ser Miles Toyne, Commander pro tempore until the Captain General arrives. His jowls quivered as he bowed. And Ser Miles, Her Grace Daenerys of House Targaryen, first of her name, and rightful Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, yes, I'm aware, Ser Miles finished, voice deep as rolling stones. He inclined his head with soldierly brevity, brown eyes appraising yet respectful. Golden Company honors its word. Our Captain General sends his greeting. He hopes we may soon serve beneath dragon banners once more. Daenerys studied him. I have read that the Golden Company was founded by a Targaryen bastard who never forgot his blood. By bitter steel Miles's scarred lips twitched. We do not forget, though gold and bread must sometimes weigh heavier than birthright. But men grow weary of hiring out their swords for causes that end in another's coffers. Some of us remember the dream. Dreams require waking hands, she said. We shall see if ours fit the same hilt. Illyrio clapped, rings ringing like chimes. All shall be weighed with wine and roast swan. He led them to seats. Daenerys at his right, Ser Miles at her right, Yora beside her left shoulder. The sellswords ranged farther down, facing Recaro and Aggo across silver bowls of spiced olives. Salara claimed a place near the foot, where she might watch both door and window. Courses paraded forth. Honey-glazed quail stuffed with dates, eels in saffron broth, peacocks baked in gilded crusts. Daenerys tasted each lightly. Illyrio devoured with gusto, regaling them with tales of Pentoshi intrigues and Lyseni love potions. The candles multiplied in mirrored wall panels, making it seem 100 Illyrios feasted in tandem. Between platters, Ser Miles leaned near. We heard of your skirmish on the Jade Sea. Word travels swift when pirates burn. My dragons lit the way, Daenerys replied. The seas may still whisper of it when your galleys row to Westeros. Dragons as allies rather than legends, Miles mused. A potent banner indeed. He sipped buttery white wine. But hatchlings grow slow. How soon till they cast shadows large enough to cow a castle? Sooner with ample meat, she answered, meeting his gaze, and Illyrio's half-hidden smile. And with time unharried by creditors. Illyrio dabbed grease from his beard. Provisions cost coin, my sweet queen, but investment in a rightful reign may yield sweetest returns. He steepled fingers. I could secure 250,000 golden dragons, enough to hire the company for a year, should your grace consider a match that unites fire and Pentoshi trade. Daenerys reclined, letting candlelight gleam along her cheek like polished steel. A match. Marriage, of course, he purred. I might humbly offer my own hand, fat though it be. Yora coughed into his goblet. Miles's brow furrowed. Daenerys felt Drogon stir beneath her cloak, claws pricking her ribs as though to say, bite this man's foolish tongue. She summoned a cool smile. Magister, your generosity matches your waist, and either alone could gird a kingdom. Yet I require more than girth in a consort. I will sit the Iron Throne by my dragon's wings and my people's trust, not by trading rings for ports. Illyrio's golden eyebrows arched, but he inclined his head. A jest, sweet child, only a jest. Wine sloshed as he raised his goblet. To Daenerys Stormborn, mother of dragons. May her suitors be worthy of her fire. The hall echoed with toasts. Yet beneath the clatter of cups Daenerys sensed currents shifting. Ser Miles's measuring glance, Illyrio's calculating eyes. Already they sought to weigh her in coin and wed her to convenience. She would have to dance the dance of thrones sooner than sail, lest partners choose the steps for her. After the feast, Illyrio conducted them to luxuriously appointed chambers. Silken bed hangings, eiderdown pillows perfume-stuffed, baths brimming with rosewater. Daenerys thanked him, then dismissed servants until only Irri remained. While the handmaid unlaced her travel-stained gown, Drogon prowled the carpets, sniffing tassels. Viserion perched atop a bronze candelabrum, bathing in warm glow. Regal curled on a pile of velvet cushions, wings twitching in half-sleep. Daenerys stepped to the balcony overlooking the courtyard where citrus trees cast silvered silhouettes. She let night air cool her cheeks, breathed scents of salt and lemon. Ships waited on the dark-sparked harbor, hers by promise, yet still bound to Magister coin. She wondered how many spies lingered outside the manse walls, sifting each rumor for King's Landing. Footsteps behind. Yora bowed in doorway, hand resting near pommel. "Forgive intrusion, Khaleesi. I wish to speak before Dawn's decisions." "Come." She motioned him to the balustrade. Below, lanterns bobbed on fishing skiffs, their reflections trailing like comets. "I do not trust Illyrio," Yora said quietly. "His promises jingle loud, but chains can be forged of gilded coin as easily as iron." "I know." She traced the marble rail. "Yet for now his chains pull toward Westeros. I will wear them long enough to cross the water, then melt them in dragonfire. Ser Miles's company may help," Yora allowed. 10,000 seasoned spears could storm half the Stormlands, but they sell allegiance dear, and the lords of Westeros will call them foreign sellswords, little better than the Myrish pirates you burned. "Then I must give Westerosi hearts something grander to pledge," she said. "Dragons and justice. We depart within a fortnight. Tomorrow I will speak with Ser Miles alone, and I want eyes in Illyrio's counting houses. If he plays two sides, I need know the card before he deals." Yora bowed. "It shall be done." Morning scented of olive groves and fresh-baked bread. In a walled practice yard behind the manse, Daenerys sparred with Ricardo beneath awnings that kept sun from turning marble to forge stone. She wielded the Iraq Drogo had gifted her. Its curve felt balanced now, familiar as a sibling's hand. Ricardo pressed hard, bells chiming with each feint, but she met every stroke, pivoting on sanded tiles, braid whipping. When she slipped inside his guard to tap the flat against his ribs, he grinned fierce pride. "Khaleesi strikes like the breaker of chains," he said, lowering blade. "Soon you will lead blood riders in slaughter dance." "Soon I will lead a realm," she corrected, drawing rag across brow. She glanced toward the parapet where the Golden Company's sellswords watched. Let them carry word to their Captain General that she was no doll draped in silk. By midday, summons came. Ser Miles requested parley in Illyrio's orangery. Daenerys arrived flanked only by Yora, leaving dragons perched upon sun-warmed roof tiles. The orangery smelled of crushed mint and ripe apricots. Glass panes glittered overhead. Ser Miles waited beside a stone table where figs, cheese, and a flagon of arbor gold rested. "Your Grace," he greeted, offering a curt nod. "Shall we speak plain, absent Magister's honeyed tongues?" "Yes," she said, seating herself. Yora remained standing behind. Miles poured wine into 2 cups. "The Golden Company has marched for 50 years, chasing debts and lost causes. We left Westeros generations past but never ceased longing for home. Bittersteel's vow binds us. Our word is good as gold. Yet we fight where coin leads, not crowns." He set cup before her. "Why should thousands hazard siege towers beneath your banners rather than those of the Boy King or the Wolf King or the Stag Pretender?" "Because I am neither pretender nor upstart," Daenerys answered. "The throne is mine by blood older than the bells of Old Town. Aegon the Conqueror forged the realm with dragonfire. His line kept it for nearly 3 centuries until usurpers spilled innocent blood. I will right that wrong and grant new oaths wait again." Fine words. Miles bit into a figure. Juice dribbled onto beard. "But fine words do not mend tattered pavises nor pay widows. I offer more than words, land. Upon victory, each man of the company shall receive holdings in the Crownlands and the Stormlands, free of taxes for 10 years. Officers shall have castles restored to them, where lords loyal to Robert stripped their families for descent." She lifted her cup yet did not drink. "More. The company's banner will ride at the king's tourneys, and its name inscribed in the Book of Brothers for the first knights to swear." Miles chewed slowly, studying her. "And coin until victory?" Illyrio fronts 250,000 dragons. House Martell of Dorne may lend more when I secure alliance through shared blood. My mother was of their line, and I possess dragons. What quantifies the worth of fear? Miles's scarred brow lifted. Fear fades when bellies ache. Not when skies burn, she replied, voice soft but edged. Join me, and your company will stand shielded by wings no army alive can match. Refuse, and perhaps you'll meet those wings before dawn breaks over the Blackwater. She sipped her wine, letting the taste linger. Our word will be good as gold, but dragons are older than gold. Silence stretched amid cicada song. Miles wiped his fingers on a linen. I will speak with my officers. If our Captain General concurs. He will, she interjected. He is a Blackfire by blood, a distant cousin of my house. Her violet eyes held his. Even offshoot roots thirst for return to their soil. Miles exhaled, a rumble like distant thunder. You have steel in you, girl, perhaps enough to weld this broken realm. He rose, bowed with soldier's crispness. You shall have reply within 3 days. The sun marched golden armies across Pentos's tiled roofs while Daenerys prepared hers in courtyards and cellars. She purchased barrels of smoked mutton, sacks of hardtack, casks of citron wine to prevent scurvy. Sailmakers stitched new dragon sigil pennants. Carpenters reinforced crates for the growing hatchlings. She commissioned chain shirts sized for lithe Dothraki frames, using silver taken from Illyrio's gift chest, though she marked each coin lent, not given. Meanwhile, Yora oversaw drilling. Every dawn, the courtyard rang with spear hafts striking shields, the rhythmic grunt of lunges. The Dothraki learned shield walls. The former slaves learned to vault to horseback. Solara's sailors practiced bowshots from ship railings moored in harbor. Daenerys herself sparred daily, building callous and confidence. At twilight, she gathered her dragons atop a parapet overlooking the whispering sea. Drogon stretched wings that now spanned near 2 yards, catching updrafts that lifted him, for a flickering instant, above the crenellations. Viserions' pale scales gleamed rose in dying light. Regal perched upon a gargoyle, hissing at gulls. She spoke to them in Valyrian, weaving words of sky and flame. Forging a language of intent they seemed to fathom by tilt of head and lash of tail. When she murmured Dracarys, Drogon loosed a jet that blackened a distant chimney pot, sending sparks swirling like fireflies. The city guard below shouted oaths, then fled. 2 evenings before Miles's promised answer, a raven bearing black and gold ribbons arrived. Yora delivered the scroll. It read, "The Captain General of the Golden Company humbly invites Her Grace to parley aboard the galley Iron Victory 3 leagues off Pentos at sunrise. Bring 1 counselor and her dragons, if she dare." Some fretted at potential treachery. Solara insisted a queen must not board a Sellsword deck without sure escape. Daenerys weighed risk against reward. Fear breeds hesitation. Hesitation loses thrones. At dawn, she donned riding leathers and a cloak of deep crimson. Drogon coiled about her shoulders. Viserion and Regal fluttered behind, wings buffeting. A swift skiff carried her and Yora across silken waves. The Iron Victory loomed, a towering cog of black oak, forecastle bristling with scorpions, its prow carved into a snarling manticore gilded at horns. Men in half-armor lined the rail, golden skulls gleaming from surcoats. Yet as she climbed the rope ladder, no arrow knocked. On deck stood a tall man clad in battered plate chased with brass. A lean hawk face, hair cropped close as a penitent's, eyes the color of old iron. Around his neck hung a chain of linked coins, each stamped with a dragon, stag, or rose. He inclined his head. Harry Strickland, Captain General. Widely called Homeless Harry, though a man is never homeless beneath a queen's welcome, I hope. Welcome depends on loyalty, Daenerys replied, stepping onto planks that smelled of tar and lemon oil. Drogon hissed. Sailors recoiled. Harry watched, unflinching. The company's loyalty is sold only once, he said. We deserted the Second Sons when they betrayed us in Myr. We have served contracts across 3 continents. Now Westeros is ripe for return. His gaze swept the dragons. We were taught that Targaryen supremacy rested on 3 heads of flame. How swiftly will yours grow? As swiftly as you train with me, she answered. As swiftly as my enemies underestimate ember for spark. She looked past him toward a raised fighting platform where quartermasters inspected crates of javelins. If you join, we sail within the moon. Harry motioned Yora aside and walked with her to the quarterdeck. Your claim is blood, yet blood alone never won a siege. What of the northern wolves? The southern roses? The river lords? They war among themselves but will unite against a foreign queen with Sellswords. My cause will not stay foreign. My mother's blood was Dornish, my father's blood Valyrian that forged their realm. I will wed the realm anew. Dove to direwolf, dragon to rose, and where persuasion fails, dragons will remind. Harry rested hands on rail, watching gulls swoop. The realm bleeds. A woman who heals might rule long. The company lost too many for gold alone. He turned. Give me Dragonstone as our seat once reclaimed. Hort, strong walls, close to King's Landing. Let its lands support widows of our fallen. Done, she said without pause. Swear now, and Dragonstone shall be yours to garrison in my name until my heir comes of age, or until you tire of loyalty, though I would not recommend such fatigue. She stroked Drogon's neck. Gold besides, of course. Once the Red Keep's vaults stand open. Strickland's stern visage softened, if only by a hair. He extended gloved hand. Then the Golden Company is yours, Queen Daenerys. Our word is good as gold. She took his hand. Heat trembled through her. Not from flesh, but from the engine of destiny cranking forward a notch. The realm across the water could no longer ignore the creak of those gears. Preparations accelerated. The 3 ships Illyrio had outfitted, Windsinger, Scarlet Crown, and Maiden's Mercy, rode anchor beside the Iron Victory and the Golden Company's escorts. A pair of sleek war galleys bristling with scorpions. Sailmakers stitched the 3-headed dragon to crimson canvas. Smiths forged arrowheads tipped with wildfire vials purchased at great expense from Lyseni alchemists. The holds filled with grain, dried fish, kegs of salt beef. Barrels of goat carcasses for dragons stank to high heaven but promised swift growth. Illyrio threw one last grand banquet. Pillow-soft dancers writhed to the thrum of lute and drum. Fire-eaters breathed plumes that made Drogon trill with curiosity. Illyrio toasted every guest, tears gleaming at his own speech. Yet Daenerys felt the walls lean close, the chandelier's jeweled pendants glittering like coins in greedy eyes. She ate little, drank less. At evening's end, the Magister presented a carved box of ebony bound with silver clasp. Within lay a circlet of red gold wrought into 3 heads of a dragon, their tongues licking a single ruby the size of a dove's egg. Your crown, forged anew upon your homecoming, he intoned. Daenerys touched it but did not lift it. A crown is earned upon smoke and tears, she said softly. Let it rest until the throne beneath it is mine. Illyrio bowed, though she saw disappointment flash across his liquid eyes. He had hoped for spectacle before departure. Always the showman, always the financier hedging bets upon which queen the realm might wear. Late that night, Daenerys stood in a private garden, lemon trees rustling under starlight. She breathed the scent that reminded her of bravos and of a house with a red door, memories half-imagined from infancy. Yora approached with a parchment stamped by Pentoshi Harbormaster. Departure clearance for dawn tide. Once we sail, he said, voice low. Illyrio's leash slips, but he may yet send ravens to rivals, selling secrets for safer odds. Let him, she replied. By the time ravens reach the capital, dragons will cross the narrow sea. Crossing is perilous, Yora warned. Autumn storms ride those waters, and Stannis Baratheon's fleet roams after Blackwater's rout, bitter men hunting prizes. She lifted her gaze to the waning moon, a scythe of silver. Storms cannot drown what water was sworn to cradle, and Stannis has lost more than he can spare. He will not contest seas he no longer owns, but advised Captain Salara to set course by evening stars, hugging Tyroshi currents. We avoid patrols, shorten passage. He nodded. Your will, Khaleesi. The fleet sailed at first blush of dawn. Seagulls wheeled, crying farewell. Harbor bells tolled in lazy salute. Crowds lined the quay, murmuring at the sight of dragons swooping between masts. Children waved scraps of cloth dyed red. Fishermen made protective signs. Some hailed her queen already. Others spat the name Stormborn like a curse. But all watched, for none could ignore Wings reborn to waking world. Dothraki riders trotted horses onto Windsinger's spacious deck, wickering at sea spray. Aggo commanded them to lash mounts securely. The horses snorted, uneasy but trusting their Kalaka. Riccaro's unit boarded Scarlet Crown, while the freedmen archers manned Maiden's Mercy. The Golden Company distributed across Iron Victory and her escorts, gold skull banners snapping. Daenerys took the quarterdeck of Windsinger beside Salara Sand. The captain wore a broad grin, hair tied with bone beads that rattled in wind. A fine dawn to steal across the world's spine, she declared, spinning the wheel. Sails billowed, the fleet crept past Pentos's outer lighthouse, and open sea unfolded, blue as ink spilled upon pearl. Daenerys felt a tremor within, not of fear but of enormous possibility. Every league measured an ache endured, a wrong to right, a promise made to bones dreaming beneath Summerhall's cinders. Days blurred into routines. Dawn muster, deck drills, dragon feedings, chart readings. Drogon hunted gulls with growing skill, plucking them mid-arc and returning triumphant to her shoulder, feathers dangling from jaws. Viserion preferred to glide lazy circles above the mastheads. Regal discovered delight in diving close to waves, talons skimming foam. On the fifth day, clouds massed, pregnant with storm.
Salara Shortensai, Galet Titan Formation.
Thunder boomed, echoing between wooden ribs. Rain lashed decks, turning planks slick as ice. Yet the fleet pressed on, hulls creaking under each swell. At height of tempest, a rogue wave smashed Scarlet Crown's port gunwale, hurling 2 Dothraki overboard. Riccaro dove after, rope tied to waist, and hauled one man to safety while sailors dragged the other with boathook. Daenerys watched from Windsinger, heart hammering. She could command storms of swords but not those of sea. At least not yet. When skies cleared, they counted survivors and losses. 2 broken ribs, 1 twisted ankle, 1 mast cracked but braced. Dragons drenched and bedraggled huddled in crates, shivering until sun-kissed scales. Daenerys knelt beside them, murmuring comfort that soothed her as much as them. 3 nights later, a lithe shadow emerged from the starboard gloom. A patrol galley bearing crowned stag upon torn banner. Stannis' colors, though blackened by defeat. Closed, oars churning. Salara signaled caution. Golden Company ballistae creaked, knocked. A hail came across waves. Identify, in King Stannis' name. Daenerys stepped to the rail, cloak flaring. Drogon perched on her shoulder, wings mantling. She answered in a voice Dothraki riders would hear from prow to stern. I am Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen. I claim these waters by dragon's right. Lower your colors or burn. Silence carried, broken only by gull cry. On the opposing deck men stirred, some clutching talismans. They had heard Blackwater tales of wildfire but not of living dragons. Drogon hissed, exhaling smoke. Flames danced along Windsinger's forecastle, a brief warning. The patrol galley shuddered, oars paused. Then its banner dipped once, twice, and lowered. Sailors scrambled to stow oars. The vessel fell back, turning east. A ragged cheer rose from her own decks. Fear indeed held price. By dawn of the 12th day, Dragonstone's black cliffs clawed above mist, jagged peaks like obsidian fangs. Fires glimmered atop the high curtain walls of the old Targaryen citadel, though reports said Stannis had abandoned it after defeat. Whether his castellan remained, none could say. Windsinger anchored beyond the stone causeway as Iron Victory and escorts formed blockade. Shallops rowed ashore bearing scouts. Yora led them, accompanied by 6 Golden Company spears and Riccaro's swiftest riders. Daenerys waited on deck, eyes fixed upon that looming fortress where Aegon's dragons once slept. Hours passed. Gulls screamed. At last, signal pennants rose. Green. No enemy banners flew. Gates barred but unmanned. Dragonstone lay near empty. Its garrison fled south with Stannis weeks prior. Daenerys allowed herself one slow breath. "Lower the longboats," she ordered. "The mother of dragons takes back her first home." She went ashore clad in mail shirt beneath white cloak. Drogon rode her arm. Viserion and Regal wheeled overhead. The causeway echoed with footsteps and clop of Dothraki horses unused to stone. Salt wind hammered walls. A storm cloud massed behind the island keep, thunder flashing like a war drum of welcome. Within the gatehouse, dust-coated rusted chains. Miles's spears shoved iron valves. Hinges screeched. The inner ward revealed cracked flagstones, weeds sprouting through joints, ancient dragon gargoyles eroded by salt. Yet the great keep still towered. Five-sided, crowned with conical roof shaped like a dragon's open maw. Daenerys crossed the courtyard. Each step reverberated through sols as though the stone remembered dragon talons. She laid palm upon basalt wall, warm despite chill air. Memory seemed to pulse within. The echo of Balerion, Vagor, Mare axes shearing sky. The first Aegon's laughter amid furnace heat. She closed eyes and felt tears, not of grief but of belonging. Harry Strickland approached, helm tucked under arm. "Dragonstone bends the knee, your grace. We shall garrison per oath. See the armory secured, cisterns cleaned," she said. "Repair smithies first. Forge steel for bannermen who flock soon." She turned to Yora. "Send ravens to Dorne. Inform Prince Doran Martell his niece has reclaimed her birthright. Also to White Harbor, Gulltown, and Blackwater Rush. Remind them what sigil now flies above the narrow sea." Ricardo stepped forward, bells chiming. "Blood of my blood, horses grow restless on deck. May we graze them upon this rock. Graze what you can," she smiled. "The gods bless Dragonstone with more stone than grass. We'll ship fodder from the mainland." She looked to sky where regal dove between battlements. "But dragons have roost at last." That night they lit hearths long cold. Smoke spiraled through chimneys, carrying scents of goat stew and burning cedar. In the throne room, a bare hall whose dais once held carved dragonstone. A new banner unfurled. 3 dragons red on black, snapping in hearth breeze. Daenerys sat upon a plain chair before it, not yet a throne. Around her gathered captains, blood riders, freedmen leaders. She addressed them with voice clear, steady. "Tonight we rest. Tomorrow we build. Dragonstone will be forge and anvil for a realm remade. My dragons will grow upon these winds. Your skills will sharpen upon its stone. We will court allies with justice, bend foes with fire. The narrow sea behind us closes like a door. Only the 7 kingdoms lie ahead." Drogon spread wings above her shoulder, bronze-edged in torchlight. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Fear, awe, resolve. Daenerys felt the weight of their expectations, but beneath it, buoyancy. The tide of purpose lifting all keels. Outside, thunder rolled across black sky, and rain lashed ramparts in wild applause. Flames guttered. The hall dimmed save for dragonfire flickering in Drogon's throat, casting crimson light upon stone carved in shapes of scale and wing. In that heartbeat, hall and queen and dragon belonged to one story. Ancient, unfinished, hungry for its final verse. She rose, cloak swirling. "Remember this night," she declared, voice carrying like steel striking steel. "The night House Targaryen planted its banner anew. When the drums of war sound, Westeros will remember as well." From the gathered came a roar, not the ragged cheer of Sellswords nor the shrill ululation of Dothraki, but a single, thunderous cry of loyalty forged in shared ambition. It washed against the stone, echoing out into storm-clad darkness. High above, Viserion answered with a piercing shriek, and Regal's deeper note harmonized. A chorus the castle had not heard since dragons last called the palace their nest. Daenerys closed her eyes, letting the sound claim her. She tasted salt, smoke, and destiny. When she opened them again, the hall seemed brighter though torches remained dim. Her path felt clearer though storms yet brewed. Tomorrow, messages would fly on raven wings, whispers would stir in council chambers, and lords would wake from uneasy dreams of crimson sails. Tomorrow, the game would quicken, but tonight, on stone forged in fire, a queen stood surrounded by those who had chosen her not by compulsion but by belief. Belief in flame reborn, in justice unslept, in a world ready to be remade beneath the beating wings of dragons once more. And Daenerys Stormborn, mother, widow, exile, warrior, queen, smiled as thunder applauded, for she knew the world could never again pretend that dragons were only tales whispered to frighten children. Above Dragonstone's highest tower, beneath rain-washed moonlight, 3 young dragons perched upon gargoyles shattered by time, wings spread to taste the storm's edge. Lightning forked behind them, sketching their silhouettes in stark relief. They shared a single pulse, fire in their veins, sky in their hearts. On the parapet below, their mother watched, cloak whipping, eyes bright with reflected flame. In the distance, beyond black waves and unseen mists, castle torches flickered in King's Landing. Ravens took flight from Winterfell's rookery. Bells tolled in Old Town for evening prayer. Unaware, each place turned its face toward daily toils, oblivious to approaching wings. But the dragons felt it, the pull of home long denied, the promise of skies yet unscribed by their flight. They raised their heads in unison and cried into storm, a note of hunger and heraldry that carried over crashing surf, over midnight sea, over sleeping kingdoms. It was the sound of dawn breaking, though the night yet lay dark, and somewhere beyond the horizon, thrones trembled.